Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. I'm your host Khalid Abul Jubain. We are honored to have Mr. Omar Al Busaidy as our guest on the show today. Omar is an AUD alumnus, entrepreneur, author and speaker with over 13 years of experience in the UAE's corporate environment. He is currently the president of Future Pipe Industries and founder of Global Possibilities, which provides commercial advisory services to companies that want to scale and operate in the UAE. In this episode, you'll learn what makes a great leader, finding your path as an entrepreneur, how can we become better communicators, and the power of belief. Please join me in welcoming to the show Mr. Omar Al Busaidy.
Thank you very much for having me, Khalid. It's an absolute honor to be back in campus and just feeling the energy of this university.
Yeah, you were just saying how it felt to park inside.
Yeah.
Good times, right?
Yes, now I know what the certain students and individuals had the privilege. Yeah, now I have the parking privilege.
Yeah.
You know you made it in life if you can park inside the campus.
There you go, exactly. That's a testament to throw on the CV for sure.
Yeah.
Omar, thank you so much for your time, man, and for coming on the show. There's so many things that I want to discuss with you today. So guys, just to give you guys some context, Omar is speaker, entrepreneur, author. He's a Fulbright scholar, and right now he has his own, he just launched his own recent business called Global Possibilities.
Yeah.
And if I've understood it correctly, that it's basically, it's a consulting firm that takes businesses from, conception to growth and through that whole
100%.
transition, that journey.
Yep.
For today, Omar, I wanted to talk to you about three areas in particular, which is entrepreneurship,
Sure.
communication, and leadership, because those three seem to be, from the research I've done, the areas that you seem to be the most passionate about and have also spoken about a lot as well.
Yeah.
But before we get into everything, Omar, why don't you give, for the people who don't know all of us, a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So Omar Busaidy. In a few days, I actually turned 38 on the 25th of March.
Early happy birthday.
So this is like a present. Thank you very much. I feel like it's a present from AUD.
Yes, it is.
Maybe, who knows, if this get edited on time, it might come out on the 25th. Just saying. But apart from that, I'm obviously a proud alumni of AUD. I did my major here. I did my bachelor's in marketing. And I'm also an author. I published a book called Just Read It. It's also available in Arabic called Iqra Hadha al-Kitab. And the book is about social and emotional intelligence. It's all about like personal development. Apart from publishing my book, I'm the founder of a company called Global Possibilities, and we focus on commercial affairs and public diplomacy, which we can probably touch upon that later on.
Sure.
And actually, very recently, I was also recruited in this new position called Future Pipe Industries, and you know that very well, Khalid.
I do.
I'm the president of Future Pipe, and it's a wonderful journey, and this company, basically, they're one of the largest companies in the world manufacturing fiberglass pipes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being at the top of the company, it's a huge honor and testament to the leadership that trusted me with this responsibility. So,
That's awesome, man. And thank you for sharing a brief intro about yourself and your story. It always helps give people some context at who we're speaking to and so on. But when I was doing my research, Omar, and I was looking at your journey, one thing really stood out was your entrepreneurial spirit. And I know from a young age, your mother always forced you to learn or appreciate what the value of hard work is. You're going to have to earn that toy, that thing, and so on. And I think that experience really helped for someone who aspires to be an entrepreneur is a great skill, because it teaches you at an early age what you need to do to get there. So I know, but of course with every entrepreneurial success came a mirage of, failures and so on. So I know with Omar's mixed CDs and, the ad agency and the wedding gowns. But I was recently been reading a book by Stephen Bartlett, and it's called, the 33 Laws for like a Good Life, or I don't know what the catchphrase is. But one of the things was outfailing your competition is one of the keys to success.
I like that.
And it seems like through your journey, that's the path that you kind of took. So But as for people who are entrepreneurs, even myself, like in that current process as well, making that shift on failure is something that even when I was doing my research, I realized I'm like, oh, I've got some work to do when it comes to being comfortable that, on this journey, with every risk that it has to go well, the equal can, the equal can happen. So for entrepreneurs, what advice would you have to them into shifting their mindset from and being comfortable with failure?
I think it's an excellent question, and I like how you brought that all together, Khalid, because when it comes to shifting mindset, it's probably one of the most powerful traits that somebody could have, and to just be able to achieve that, it seems like an impossible task, because there's a lot of things that comes with it. It's the family, your friends, your network, the people. So all these people that are around you, who can play that role, whether they influence to help you change that mindset or not. So for me, I was always very fortunate, and I talk about one person in particular a lot, which is my uncle. So my mom's brother, his name is Isa Rawahi. You probably read that. And Isa, my uncle, he always told me there's no such thing as failure, only trials. So I was like, oh.
Okay.
So so no matter how many times with all those different businesses that I had set up, failed, etc., he was always there to tell me, it's okay, there's another thing you'll come up with, I'm very sure, and just go ahead and try it. So for me, having my uncle was truly like, he's the person that I will forever I'm indebted to, because he's the one that I aspire to be like. He's very successful himself. Unfortunately, he wasn't even able to graduate from high school, let alone university. But he made it like big time, especially in the oil and gas industry. So, and by the way, he came from a very poor family. So this is not even something that he had like a cushion on. So having him as a role model and his advice really helped me. And I think the other thing, now this is the first thing where, I talked about having the right people, right? But I think another skill, or I wish that this is something that they would teach you in business school or even at home, is perseverance and persistence, being persistent. No matter how many times you get put down, it's how quickly you get up from it that determines everything about who you are, and also the ability to be able to change that mindset. So for me, I'm glad that I've had this thing where, you know what, no matter how many times someone dares me or tells me, like, oh, this is going to do, I always want to prove them wrong. Like, I live for it, Khalid. I live for trying to prove people wrong. All I want, and look, maybe I'm an Aries, so, this is the Aries month, so I can say that now. But, it's coming up soon. So Aries are known to be very stubborn, and I don't like someone telling me no, or I don't like someone asking me why. I like to say, why not? If they say no, then what other options are there? So for me, I always have plan B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z. Maybe beyond that if there's another letter.
Okay.
So for me, this is these two things, having that perseverance and being persistent and everything, as well as having the right people, were the ingredients that allowed me to change my mindset.
Yeah. And from the outset, what you touched on is changing mindset is, in theory, very digestible. In application, it's a whole different story. And one really important thing that you brought about is that all the other factors that go into mindset, it's not just about like what you're doing for yourself. It's who are the people around you, where do you live, the environment, what are you doing, all these different things. And when you talked about how your uncle Isa was kind of like your guiding mentor, and the one pushing you and believing in you in those times when when things didn't work out and so on. And I know this story blew my mind when I was doing my research. You talked about the importance of people believing in you, and you referenced the British ambassador at the time. Just after a 10-minute conversation, hiring you, no experience, but he saw something. There was someone saw something in you that you might not have seen in yourself. And then to be sitting on the table with His Highness and, you know, the Prime Minister, and and you were 21, I think, at the time. I'm sitting, I'm like, what would he been feeling or thinking at the time? I can't even imagine. I would trip out even now.
Yeah.
But the question I wanted to come on to is, you've had a mentor in your life, which was your uncle, and you've had people believe in you that were outside like the circle. Now, as a mentor yourself, when you're towards your mentee, what's that kind of relationship like? Because I think this is something very important for entrepreneurs. Like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't have mentors, and I think mentorship, especially in this space, is probably, there needs to be more weight given to it than I think there is at the moment.
You know, it's. I know it's going to sound cheesy, but I mean this, Khalid. What I tell like my mentees is believing in yourself. It's so easy to just say it and throw it around because you see it everywhere. It's a Instagram post. It's like one of those things that people will pose like a picture or something and then put that on their caption. Khalid, you know, even I think like the word of God, even the word like al-mu'min, just believer, it's such a strong word. And I feel if you take that word, if you break it up and you just focus on yourself and think, wow, you know, what am I able to do? If you look at all the people in the world that have had like amazing legacies, what they were able to do with just believing in themselves. They had nothing, they didn't have an extra organ. Everybody has the same kind of things. It's just, if you look at everybody, whether they had a formal education or they didn't have a formal education, God had allowed us to see all the kind of people, regardless of their circumstances, being able to do something. So what was it? If with every single person there's one thing that's complete, there's always consistent, is the belief in themselves, that they could do it, and they can make it. So for me, like one of my favorite people that I like to listen to a lot is Deion Sanders, who's the University of Colorado, the Colorado Buffaloes coach. I know he didn't do very well last season, but you know, still, I like to watch his videos and stuff. And he even has all his merch says believe. I believe, like, you know, and that's what he asks his team to constantly like narrate and say and repeat, like believe. So for me, I tell people, if you believe in yourself, you believe you can make this happen and you want it. So I ask people this, do you want this? Is this what you want inside? Is this what you want? Do you want to excel? Do you want to elevate? Do you want to go to the next level? All these questions. If they say yes, okay. Do you believe you can do it? Okay. If you believe, great. If you don't, why not? So when you get to the crust of this question, that's it. That's all that it takes. So for me, that is, I believe, the most powerful message that I was able to get from multiple mentors, by the way, and multiple people who inspired me, whether I read books about them or whether I watched their videos or whether I went to see their talks. Even as I was super young and I flew all the way to Tony Robbins' conference in San Francisco, like Unleash the Power Within, just to listen to him, because I heard this guy was a guru and everybody was telling me whatever, and I spent so much money just to get to San Francisco, just to go to that event and come back. But and having received all this information, and I feel like being lucky to get this. I am confident that God wanted me to like spread this message along, and I feel like whenever I get the opportunity, this is what I narrate to people. And I'm so glad that, you know, without mentioning names, I was able to influence these same very individuals that came to seek knowledge or guidance from me. Yeah, that's all. And I think if you have the ability to give back, and if that's the frame you're going to go with in terms of belief, because belief, as an entrepreneur, you know yourself. You know, you've had, I'm sure there were times where your belief waned, because I think belief,
okay, this is going to be a little bit of a deep question because I'm trying to like get into it.
Ask me anything. I'm good.
I'm trying to figure out, because belief should be, when you're saying believe in yourself, that means, because if I say the trouble I'm having here is belief evidence based or not? Because on one hand, I can argue belief is not evidence based because belief is what gets you going in spite of the evidence. However, does that also mean that belief now is clouding your judgment because the evidence isn't supporting this belief that you have? I feel like in order for longevity, you can't have one without the other. I don't know. That's just my perspective.
You know, I'll tell you this, because I'll tell you this. When they come up with, when there's that quote that says, if there's a will, there's a way. What's will? There's a will, it means belief. There's a way. So regardless of evidence, etc., you will find a way. There's multiple ways. There's always, if this doesn't work, you're going to find something else. Look, I'll tell you this. Let's say, for example, your belief is you want to make $100,000 a month, right? And you're currently doing this. You're working in an organization and you feel like, okay, you know what? I believe I worked really hard. This is, etc. I'm going to do this. It may not work for you. It might not be the case. It might be the horrible work culture, the environment, etc. And it will never go there. But there are multiple other ways to get to this $100,000 a month. So as long as the goal is clear and this is what you really want to achieve, and you have the will and the belief that you could make it, so there's other ways around it. It doesn't have to be there. So this is so for me, I like to use this other quote. Let me just make it easier, okay? Be stubborn about your goals, but be flexible with your methods.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So, if you know, there's a will, there's a way, and then that's on the first part. And then when it comes to your goals, then there's a quote about the goals, because a lot of the times there are people who are very stubborn about their goals, and no matter how many times they try, they get hit at the door. They're stuck at the door and they can't get through. And you tell them, and sometimes the mentors will be like, listen, maybe this is not a place for you. But they would be like, no, they'll insist. They'll be like, no, but I got to persevere and everything. Okay, there's a difference between perseverance and then there's a difference between stupidity. Because what did Einstein say about stupidity? We all know. You know, doing the same thing all the time and expecting a different outcome. That was the famous Einstein quote about the definition of stupidity. But then you have this, okay, be stubborn about your goals, but be flexible with your methods and how you get there.
I think, you know, I really like that because it does provide, it kind of puts things in order, in the sense of, okay, first, step one to start this entrepreneurial journey, I need belief that I can do something about whatever I'm about to do. Then I need the vision of where I'm going to go. I have to put a plan in place, but this is not set in stone. You know, this is the guideline of how we're going to move forward. Great. So now we're at stage 3. Now we're going to go into stage 4, which is something which is kind of like what your book was, the title of your book was based on, and I think your personality, you know, just do it, and you're in Aries, and by the way, my wife is in Aries, so I know how you guys work very well. I know exactly how you guys work. So I'm
sorry, I apologize. Wait, what's your star sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, okay, because my wife is a Pisces. So yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
But we get along pretty well because she's water and fire. So she puts my fire out a few times, you know.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. So now that we've gone through those first 3 stages, now we're on the question of, okay, now is the how. Now we're at stage how, and I think, like, I can tell you from my example, in my personal example, it's, and I asked someone on the podcast this, and I'm like, I know I have the goal, I have no idea how to get there. I don't know what to do. And he told me, he's a previous alumni as well, and he told me, he's like, you've got the hardest part figured out. the how is the easier part. Being on the challenging how side, I'm gonna I'll disagree with that. So what advice would you have to someone like me or entrepreneurs that are like, all right, we know where we want to go, but I don't like on the daily basis, like what are the steps? Like, because I think for entrepreneurs, the problem is never the will, it's the way.
Yeah,
it's the how.
Okay, this is a golden question, bro. I'll tell you this, Khalid. You know, they say, sorry, I'm throwing around too many quotes. Not like I memorized a book of quotes and
no,
you know, but
they're there for a reason.
They're
supposed to come out now.
I tend to kind of like, there's a lot of quotes, like verses from the Quran that are engraved in my brain that always are, that help guide me every day, you know?
Sure.
So like, you know, they say, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Like, it's just a dream.
Yeah.
So for me, again, you probably know this from your wife because we're Aries. We love to plan.
Yeah. Oh
like,
my God.
We love it. We have a whole plan.
Oh my, you guys give me anxiety, by the way. Honestly, just a little side tangent. So she's a planner and I'm lastminute.com. We're coming from two different worlds. Like, she tells me when we don't plan, I get anxiety. I'm like, when you come to me 6 months, tell me to plan for 6 months later, I get anxiety.
Yeah. You know, I mean, we can be a bit spontaneous too sometimes, but I feel for the most part, with a lot of the things that's like going on in my life right now, you know, but it's true, you know, you do your best and then God does the rest, because or they say sometimes you plan and God laughs or something like that, but because like you should, but still, however, when you create a plan, you create structure.
Okay.
And then you create structure, you create boundaries, you create an ecosystem where you'll be able to thrive and pick and choose what kind of information, knowledge you want to put around you, how much time you want to be dedicating, which people do you want to associate yourself with. So I'll be very honest, one of the things I like to discuss a lot with people, Khalid, look, obviously growing up in the UAE, I have my friends I went to high school with and everything else. My friends from high school, the ones that I'm still in touch with, they're doing good. They're doing good, but they're not doing great. And in my opinion, they're, you know, with all due respect to them, but I knew that what got me here won't get me there.
Something needs to change.
Exactly. So, and literally, there's a book with that title: "What got you here won't get you there."
Yeah.
If you read that book, it's golden. It literally tells you, like, if again, like you said, how do I get to achieve this? How do I attain this success and whatever? It all comes down to first being honest with yourself, assessing your status quo. What's going on in my life right now? You know, how much am I dedicating to X, Y, Z, etc. Even family members can be toxic. So
absolutely,
you gotta be, you gotta be brutal, and there's gonna be sacrifices, and as long as you're willing to make and take those sacrifices, the how will come like that on a golden plate. So it's that easy. But we get our answers the best when we have clarity. But the problem is we're too distracted with so many other issues, or sometimes we let other things cloud our mind.
Sure.
And that does not allow for clarity of what. So for me, a lot of the times when I get my best ideas, I tend to spend a lot of time alone. I love, unfortunately, sometimes I go and smoke a cigar, go and sit somewhere, chill. I'll be in a lounge, or I'll be at the beach, or I'll just take like long walks, just meditate sometimes, or I'll sit in the mosque for like hours and just plan and be like, you know what? This is what I gotta do. I gotta do this, this and that. And then that's it. I stick with it. No matter what. By hook or by crook, I stick with it.
Yeah.
So, I think if people dedicate more time to themselves, that's where you'll get a lot of clarity. And again, the way that I avoid distractions, you know, when they talk about the 5 a.m. club, I'm telling you, Khalid, waking up at that time in the morning is golden, because scientifically it's amazing for you, but also the fact that there's zero distractions, even on the streets, like there's no one. So when I wake up in the morning and I walk to go pray, I notice how quiet and nothing's going on. Your phone's not ringing, nobody's calling you, whatever, nobody's texting you. So you have nothing to be worried about. That's the time when you get your best ideas. And then you're able to plan. So for your goals, you're like, okay, you know what? I know from this time, I'm going to do this. This time, I'm going to do this. And that's it. The wheels are then in motion.
One of a goal without a plan is just a wish. I think that is. I think one of the challenges, at least been in my experience, has been bringing structure to what happened by accident. You know, I think that has been where my biggest struggle is, and maybe a lot of people in that transition phase to like go from like, oh, this works to like, oh no, now this we need to like sit down, do numbers, do this, do that, really build this thing out. And you mentioned one of the top qualities of, you know, the top leaders in the world and CEOs and whatever is communication. We're getting into the communication vibe, and this area is actually where probably I'm the most interested to speak to you. So I'm going to start at the top. If the channels that we're using to communicate have a massive impact on how a message is received, we're going to talk about how that part of it in a sec, but I want to start here first. Obviously, with modern technology, now we are communicating more than we ever have in the history of humanity.
100%.
Is that making us better or worse communicators in your opinion?
Very, very, very good question. You know, in my opinion, let's even just take my generation. I'm 38, I told you, inshallah. But from the time I was like 15 or so, you know, I realized, so some people, by the way, they always wonder when I speak in English. I don't claim that I have a Western accent, but they're like, okay, your accent is a little bit unusual. It's probably better than a lot of the people that grew up around here. So I remember that I would always practice by imitating like Hollywood characters or something. I'd watch the movies, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know, stuff like that.
Classics.
And then I would try to literally when I watch a scene, I would shut the door, I'd be in the bathroom and staring at myself in the mirror and like speak. And my mom, she used to always think like, she thought I was possessed. She was like, I'm not really talking to some like jinni or what. Like I used to freak her out because she was really scared. Like, who are you talking to inside? You know, and obviously we didn't have phones when we were kids, yeah? But I used to be like, Ma, I'm talking to myself. She's like, stop doing that. Don't do it in the toilet. You're going to get possessed, you know? So she used to always say that. It was really, it was hilarious. Anyways, so for me, I feel, imagine if that time we were only exposed to TV and we're getting that kind of content. Today, when I watch people like yourself, listening to people like you, Khalid, speaking really well, etc., how you're structuring your questions, how you've done your research, and how you're, the tone of your voice, everything. These qualities that you're able to now see how people all over the world, whether the person's a Brit, a South African, a New Zealand, or whatever, and being able to practice with all that information, I feel like it actually gives us an advantage. And that's why today there's always this argument about, do we really need to have like formal education? Because people are doing it like learning on YouTube. Exactly, and today you can learn everything on YouTube. Like you can learn, there was this kid who learned how to build a freaking nuclear plant on YouTube. He's like 16 years old. It was really famous. It came out, I think it was in the UK or something. So I feel like I don't agree with that statement. I feel I agree with the statement that today we are able to become much better communicators, and the fact that there are all of these different translation tools and God knows what, I feel we're definitely at an advantage now.
So you think now with the fact that we've been forced to communicate more has forced us to become better communicators.
And you know, Khalid, one of the things for me, for example, as confident as I may seem to you, I'm telling you, I was not like this. Like one of the things for me, like, you know, they say the biggest fear for people all over the world, more than anything else, more than death, is speaking in public, right?
Yeah, that's true. But
now look at how many resources you have that can prepare you for that. I wish at my time I was able to watch TED Talks. But now when I watch them, I'm like, wow, how they stand there confidently, how they structure it and everything. Like that's why I don't see people now saying, oh, I want to go and get a Toastmasters class. Everybody is just like, oh, I'm going to go and watch a YouTube session.
Exactly, yeah. So okay, so if we're gonna go with the premise that we are now better, right? What we've heard, you've said it, I've heard it a billion times, everyone said it a million times. When it comes to communication, it's not the what but the how. This is said a million times.
It's the how.
And yet, I would say if people are being very honest with themselves, because you need to be actually aware of this in real time when it's going on, we still are what communicators, not how communicators. We just still are. And I'm like, everyone said this for so long, why do we keep still making this mistake? Khalas, it's there, it's proven.
Yeah, it's a very good question. That's a tough one. I think, you know, look, I feel that this is because no matter how often I would go and take all these different classes or courses and stuff about public speaking, I realized what's the core that allows people to be very, very comfortable. And again, my example is actors. You know, when these guys are filming a scene, can you imagine how many hundreds, sometimes it could go up to 1,000 people that are standing behind the camera and watching like two people do a scene. Like imagine what kind of nerve you need to have to just be able to act like a different character. Sometimes a crazy person, sometimes cry, sometimes whatever. How do you do that? So I actually watched a couple of masterclass sessions of these people. And one that they teach you about and they discuss is being able to disassociate or disconnect yourself from your body, almost. Like look at yourself as a third person. Imagine there's a Khalid and then there's another Khalid, like looking at Khalid. You know, like sometimes in cartoons
Inception,
they do that. Inception
Yeah.
and something like that. So when you do that, Inception, that I'm telling you is a very powerful way to kind of like get out of your bubble and out of your comfort zone and then put yourself out there. One. The other thing, I'll tell you, one of my techniques is when I walk into a room. We met the first time the other day. What I do is if I know that I'm going to have to communicate and speak, before I get on stage, I always insist with the organizers to go not behind the stage, but in front of the stage. I want to be amongst the people. And I go and I familiarize myself. And then what do? Once I get to know about a few people, I get to meet a few people and I introduce myself. Then I'm building rapport, I'm breaking the ice. And then when I get to know a few of their names, when I go on stage, I'll say something and I call them by their name. Because what I do is I establish like the presence, like I'm talking amongst my friends, rather than I'm talking to a bunch of strangers. So that, I think, if we break down the idea that we're talking to strangers, and we kill that word, which, to be honest, I don't even like it. We're all connected. We're all connected. We're like, you know, they used to say like 1 degree separation. Like exactly, no, now I think there's like 0.1 degree separation, because we're all connected in some shape or form.
For sure.
So once we break into that and find our similarities, then that's it. The how, it becomes just seamless.
Yeah, I really, I find it very interesting that you looked into acting and in that world. And I'm like, when you were saying it, I'm like, damn, that's actually a really good place to look. That's really interesting. Like studying them and understanding what they do, and your technique It's genius.
Yeah,
It's really smart. It's very, like, listening to it, I'm like, that's very smart.
thank you,
You know, I've watched enough stand-up to know,
Yeah.
and I've, you know, listened to enough psychological things to understand,
yeah.
like, the value of that little move that you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So, okay, so building on, so if we've talked about that I really like what you said, that breaking down communication to be like speaking to a friend, because that's when you probably are the most fluid, the most honest, and when the conversation seems to flow the most smoothly without effort.
Exactly.
You know, I don't have to think about like, what's, you know, he gonna think, what's he gonna say, am I saying it right, you know?
And you know, and sorry to cut you off,
No,
Khalid, but I was
please.
going to say, like, if you think about it, even when you look at people, where are they most comfortable at speaking? It's usually like family gatherings or friends. You notice, you're like, why, you know, and even sometimes, like, just because somebody will introduce you to somebody else for the first time, you go out to a coffee shop or something and say, oh, this is my, and then immediately you guys are like hooking up, and it's all fun and games.
Yeah.
So, like, how can I have that same vibe with everybody else?
Yeah.
Like, let's just assume all of these people are people that I had invited. They were all my classmates, and then that's you will feel it immediately.
100%. And we've talked. So when we've talked about kind of the characteristics of a good communicator, how it kind of works together. What is the mindset to go into it with? We haven't touched on communication for when it comes to bad news, and this is something you said that my background is not in marketing or in crisis comms or anything like that. I'm familiar with it now because, you know, of my wife's work. So, like, I've by osmosis heard all these different things. But things like holding statements, I never knew what a holding statement was. I'm like, that's so good to have. But you said something when it comes to like PR and comms, and that the leader needs to be prepared for the worst first, so then he can deliver that bad news in the right way to, you know, his team or his employees and so on. Now, you said two things that I didn't know. If you, like, in the middle of a crisis, if you come out too early and speak, you don't have all the facts. You could be, you know, tone deaf to what's going on. You don't know what's happening. If you come out too late, rumors can start spreading, and there's a narrative that's being created that you have no chance of controlling. So, what my question then becomes is, how is inaction perceived?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's not this, it's not that.
It's a very good point. I'll tell you this. One of the jobs that I had that was extremely valuable is working at the British Embassy.
Okay.
Diplomacy. Like, it is. By the way, do you know where the word diplomacy comes from, or diplomat?
No.
So, English comes from two languages, Latin and Greek. And diplomat is a Greek word. It stands for two faces.
Really? Well, doesn't that just say it right on the labeling, huh?
I mean, diplomacy started technically from you know. Anyways, so or two sides. I mean, the whole idea is when you are in a position of a very critical and very sensitive area, you have to learn everything about communication, good and bad, and everything that you just mentioned right now, whether there's a holding statement or not. But and you know what they say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Again,
Exactly.
we're going to that word, how.
How.
You know, the how you say it, right? So I'll get to diplomacy, but we just want to touch about, you know, how. Now, the how entails having a few things. You need to be able to read the room, number one. So read the audience, read the room. Reading the room is really, really important, because who you want to send that message to ultimately, is it just to the masses, is it just to a certain group, etc., determines everything about when and how and what words you want to be able to choose, etc., when it comes to that.
So, like, sorry to interrupt. So the depending on again, we've talked
the context.
about the context. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Depending on the context. Okay. Then, not only that. Now, I think a very, 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 very good skill is empathy. If people can put themselves in other people's shoes and being able to perceive it from their perspective. Because a lot of the times when we say something, and if you think about anything, even now when you just say one statement to me, if we take a moment and think, you know what, if I'm in Umar's shoes, how will I receive that information? So if people have and nurture the empathy skill and reading the room and improving their vocabulary, like learning to use more words or different words, you know, all these things. And again, we are blessed, by the way. For example, we're both Arabic speakers. If you think even in Arabic, there's so many words that you could use for the same meaning.
Absolutely, yeah.
And different words, different ways. The same with English, French. Like you can say tu for you or vous for you as well. So it all comes down to that. So I think all these things are, again, the ingredients, the secret ingredients to a winning formula of deciding and executing a successful communication plan.
Okay. I think one thing you touched on there that's so important was context.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I think when it comes, like if we're summarizing our discussion regarding communication, it's going to come down to two words: context and how.
And how. Exactly.
Context and how. Those two things, like, and
exactly.
That's you should direct you in whatever avenue you're in.
Yeah. You know, Khalid, another quote that I like is they say it's actually funny. It's from a photographer. She said, "Before you speak, think. Before you think, read."
Nice.
So that, when it comes to communication, has always been like my motto.
Yeah. Because
it really, really helps with deciding when you want to say and what you want to say and how you want to say what you want to say. You know, for sometimes even when it comes to an argument, if I believe I do not have sufficient information about that topic, I won't even say. Even I could disagree with the person, I will save my breath. I'll be like, you know, it's not even worth it. Because I know I have some flaws. I've not, acknowledged myself enough on the topic that I'll be able to deliver. Because I will ruin the reputation of not just the argument on my side, but anybody else that will attempt. Like,
exactly,
I'm just going to add more fuel to the fire. So I don't even say anything.
Yeah. And I think in certain situations, they say, you know, the person who speaks last is that's who you should aim to be, because that is the guy that has heard everyone's opinion, and now I can collate, analyze, shift, and now I'm like, okay, now I have Khalid's opinion based on everything that has happened.
So they say there's wisdom in silence.
There you go, exactly. And it's funny, you know, even in podcast recordings, there'll be like people might worry about. They're like, oh, but there was like a silence. I'm like, leave it. That's what builds. You know, that's what builds that thing. Coming on a little bit to rounding off our conversation with leadership. Okay. So just to kick us off,
because I'm not a leader, so you know I'm going to be exploring this with you, Annie, together. Because I'm just an innocent bystander.
An innocent bystander.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
You know what? I'll tell you this. I on leadership. Sometimes people will, you know, because I take that word very, very like very, very like seriously, like to the highest like of all other words that I know, but. You know, I always tell people, I'm not a king, I'm a kingmaker. I love Khalid, making other people successful. Anytime people ask me for help, I do it. Like, I don't need anything. But that is what, so for me, like every time I get like an opportunity to be like the head of this or like a unit or whatever, I always say, no, I want to be number 2. Let me be number 2. I like number 2.
Okay.
I thrive at number 2.
Okay.
Because I feel like I thrive better at protecting someone. It's an Aries thing. We're protectors.
But that is someone who knows himself very well. To have that level of awareness about yourself that's very rare.
Yeah.
Because everyone, 99.9% of the world, where's everyone aiming for? The top. The top is number one of X. So, but to understand that you're stronger as a number two, the value or utility is just as valuable. It's just in a different arena.
Yeah,
I really respect that.
Yeah,
I really do.
If you think about it, you watch football, soccer for this concept. We talked about the Buffaloes earlier. So, okay, if you think about it, even the players, they know themselves. They'll say, "I'm a number 9." Someone can be that good, but they'll say, "I'm a number 10," or "I'm a number 11." Or I'm number 1, which is the goalkeeper. So like even football players like that, I like when they say that sometimes they don't even mention the position. They'll say the number, which I really like because even in the context of an organizational structure, you want to say because you're number 1, if you're like, CEO. But I say I'm a number 2. That's my strong point.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really not good to be lower than number 2, because the moment I'm lower than that, then I don't have the ear of the leader, and I don't have enough power to work with everybody after number 2.
You like being the bridge.
Exactly. So I'm like, please let me be that person.
Yeah, you're the bridge. You are, if anything, in 99% of cases, the bridge is the most important part.
Thank you.
In any deal, negotiation, discussion, that connection is everything.
Because at number 2, you can have, it's a lot of advantages. To be honest, for me, I feel it's even better than number 1, because you have a holistic view of everything. You have far less scrutiny, almost no scrutiny.
For sure. Yeah, that's true.
You can see everything from a more objective perspective. And my recommendation for people for this particular position, number 2, is watch the movie Vice, which is about Dick Cheney, former Vice President Dick Cheney. How he became one of the most influential and powerful vice presidents ever in not just US history, but around the world. I mean, he's the founder of Halliburton, one of the most successful companies in the world. So if you watch that movie Vice, not only are you going to see how powerful his position was, he was way more powerful. Everybody knew he was pulling the strings, because he was able to influence the White House and Congress.
Yeah.
But not only that, you will also see how his wife, because by the way, Dick Cheney was he was a loser. It was his wife that made him vice president, because they met at Yale, but he got dropped out. He got kicked out of Yale because he was just like a drunk. He was partying too much, whatever. He ended up becoming an electrician. But his wife was like, "Look, I'm giving you one more chance. I'm going to work very hard to get you to this position," because she had aspirations of being in that position. But she couldn't.
Yeah, but she couldn't
because she's a woman. But she's like, you know what? I can't, but he can. And as long as I can get my...
So I get that's the Republic.
That was even the real one. So
that's the one.
So so anyways, this is my point. What's that movie, Vice?
Vice, guys, check that one out if you want to be number 2. And number 2 in a good way, not a bad way. And I love that you just mentioned football teams, because I hear this all the time. If you're a football watcher, you hear this. The team has a lot of good characters, and there are leaders in the team. But there's leaders in the team, and then there's a captain. Okay. And then you hear about different phrases. People say leading in different ways. Lead by example. I would take that. Lead by the front. Lead from the back. I would say, okay, put lead next to whatever. So bring all that together. In your own words, define a leader for me.
In my words, I think the textbook definition is a leader is someone who can inspire others to do something even without him or her asking them to do it. Like they're just able to do that, like in their presence and stuff. But I believe that a leader is one who has, in its purest form, the greatest level of empathy. If you think about it, I'll use different examples very quickly. From a religious perspective, all the prophets were of the people and they were like down on the ground. If you think about business people as well, successful business people, if we look at the founder of KFC, or you look at the founder or the founder of McDonald's, you know, for better or for worse, that guy, Crocker or something, how he was, again, always, he was in sales. He was in the ground there until he bought that franchise off of the main founders of McDonald's. You look at Mark Zuckerberg. Why did he set up Facebook? It was literally for one reason, because he and a group of other nerds like him wanted to connect with the girls on campus, and then they created like Facebook because they were all this group of people that were shy and didn't have the nerve, or they were like introverts and stuff, and they couldn't talk to the other gender. So a leader in the end is able to have the leader has great God-given potential and is able to put that potential into execution by doing something for the masses. And that for me is what a leader is. Someone who has empathy, really, really knows what is that problem and what is everybody like face, and is able to take that and put that at the table. And let's take an example, Sheikh Zayed, the founder of the UAE. Sheikh Zayed of the UAE, he wasn't rich. He was elected by the people because he had such good relationships with people from different tribes that he was able to bring them all together. And then they discovered oil much later, but before that he wasn't. There was all these other business people who were funding and whatever, but the ruling family actually did not have the funds. So again, so the leader for me is someone that really has, and then of course all of that comes together. When we'll go back to communication,
yeah, of course,
then then they have all that by default. But you start to build on all of those different qualities if you immerse yourself amongst. Think about now. Even if you don't use the best example, but people like Pablo Escobar. Why did they love him? The Colombian people wanted him to be president. He was of the people. He was like the Robin Hood.
So it sounds like a leader is the empathetic emotional aggregator. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what you said. Done.
You know,
that was it. You should put that in the textbook now.
That's what it is.
Done. Yeah, you should own that. You should IP that. That done. You said it like a boss. That's exactly spot on.
Yeah, that's but it was a team effort, because without your description, you put it in that way. But you're right. You're right.
That's it.
You're right. And I really love the different examples you gave, because it made it very clear. I understood. I'm like, that's because it's all. And everything you said, it came down to empathy and emotion, and bringing people together. Yeah. The one who brings people together, he's the one, or they are the people that they will be, will be the leaders of tomorrow. Yeah.
Bringing people together towards that common goal. And that, which is what we're working on. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So and that's and all of the kind of people we just discussed. These have been success models, whether it is in religion, in politics, or in business.
applies across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Omar, I could probably sit and talk to you for thousands of hours, and today we're only just going to scratch the surface of many, many more, I'm sure, coffees and meetings.
Done.
For my last question, this is a question that we ask all our guests, which is, so when we were coming up with the aim of the message for this podcast, we wanted to showcase that success comes in many forms and learning that never stops. And, even reflecting on AUD, you're an alumni, I'm an alumni. A lot of a majority, I'd say, of the guests we have are alumni, and every single one of us has our own story, how we got here, how, you're sitting there, how I'm sitting here. And so when you reflect back, I'm sure you've learned 20 million things. But I always believe that in everyone's life, there was something, it might have been small, but there was something you learned that really coming back to what we started this conversation with, which was shifted your mindset. What would your game changer learning be, I guess, for you that you'd give to someone else? What was that one piece of advice?
Especially Khalid, here at AUD, and I talk about this a lot, and I'm always grateful to this institution. It was the professors. The faculty, both professors and also the supporting staff and the administration have been instrumental, absolutely instrumental in my growth and success. Like bar none. The time that they dedicated just to, if there's one thing that I will always remember, and it's like stamped for me in my brain, is the words office hours. Because the professor's office hours, because every time I wanted to ask them, bro, I'll tell you one thing, Khalid, you're happy you were not with me in the same cohort. The kids in school used to hate me. I used to ask a lot of questions. I'm very, very inquisitive.
You're very curious.
I'm very curious, very inquisitive. I love asking questions. I've been a pain like this since I was a kid. My dad, Allah rahmah, my dad was annoyed. He was like, why are you asking so many questions, So bless our professors, because they get these roles because they're super patient anyways. So because I couldn't take those questions in class because I didn't want to annoy everybody else all the time, they would tell me, come see me in my office hours. So for me, being able to have their time for both the admin staff, the faculty, and the kind of information that they gave me there was way more valuable than what I had in class. And that's was my biggest takeaway from here.
Yeah.
So being inquisitive, curious, as you said, and take an understanding that people who are more experienced than you have more knowledge and will hopefully embark that knowledge and information to you, and you believe that if you take that message and make it your own and fly with it, that's it. Doing that part and having that belief, the rest God is going to make. God will do His magic, and everything else becomes easy.
Fall into place.
Will follow. Exactly.
Yeah,
that for me is my advice to people.
Yeah.
Ask.
And you know what? And building on what you're saying, because everything you said resonates with me.
Yeah.
I'm an incredibly curious person. This is why I do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
It's my ticket to non-stop learning every single time I sit down with someone. And like you said, you don't know, you have access, if you have access to these people, to podcasts, books, whatever, just asking them. You don't understand how much sometimes just if you, how simple an ask is, and how simple that thing that you were so worried about for I'm afraid to ask or whatever. Oh, no. Yeah. Even if it's a no, okay.
Yeah.
Life, body still intact, I can,
exactly.
I can live.
What God says, ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, you won't know.
There you go. I don't think there's any better way to end it than like that, guys. Omar, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show today, man. Really, I've really loved this conversation, both on a personal level, because there's stuff that I'm taking away from it for myself.
Me too.
but also for your advice to people and anyone looking to everything we've talked about, you know, can apply to anyone in any discipline.
100%.
Whatever they're trying to do. So I really appreciate that.
No,
man.
It's an honor for me to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Work with you, reach out with you, speak to you. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn, Omar Busaidy. My
Okay.
LinkedIn is there.
Okay.
We already connected on LinkedIn.
Yes,
So we
sir.
got it. Yeah.
We're good.
Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram, LinkedIn.
Instagram, LinkedIn. Done. Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much. Please make sure to like, share, and follow to the podcast at AUD Dubai. Omar, thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you for having me.
Until next
God
time.
bless you.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the AUD podcast channel. We really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something from it. We have a lot of incredible guests lined up for you on the show, and we're so excited to bring you their inspiring stories. To stay up to date with all the latest episode releases, please make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on the AUD Instagram page at AUD Dubai.